Have you ever noticed how certain individuals seem to have a mysterious power to change the environment around them without saying a word? They don't shout or beg for attention. They simply withdraw, and suddenly everything shifts. The energy in the room changes, and people start to question, chase, or even react differently. What if you could do the same? What if you chose silence instead of automatic reactions? What if you withdrew from situations that trigger your impulses? The truth is, when you stop being available emotionally, psychologically, or physically, everything changes. The world around you enters a state of crisis. People are so used to controlling you through your reactions, your availability, and your predictability. When you stop playing into these expectations, the game shifts. But why does this matter? Because people only respect what they don't have easy access to. They become used to the idea of you responding at their convenience. When you withdraw, they no longer know how to handle you. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." When you stop reacting immediately, who becomes desperate? Who tries to provoke you to get an emotional response? This reveals more about the other person than it does about you. It shows how deeply you've been manipulated into reacting on command. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you lose a piece of your energy. You might feel an emptiness at the end of the day, but this happens because you are too available to those who don't deserve even a minute of your silence. This is not about rejecting the world. It's about choosing yourself, choosing your energy, and prioritizing your peace. It's about individuation, the process of becoming your true, authentic self, as Carl Jung described. And this process begins when you understand that silence can be more powerful than any argument. When you withdraw from a place of awareness rather than escape, you are reclaiming your power. Stop for a moment. How long will you continue to be controlled by the emotions of others? How long will you react impulsively to every situation? Perhaps it's time to withdraw, to become a mystery, to stop being so available. Because when you stop reacting to everything, everything changes. Since childhood, we've been taught to always be present, to respond quickly, to please others, and to say yes even when it feels wrong. This conditioning shapes how we interact with the world, how we value our worth, and how we relate to those around us. The truth, however, is that being always available is not a virtue, it's a prison. And as long as you continue to be accessible at all times, you will be manipulated, drained, and forgotten the moment you no longer serve a purpose. The problem lies in being predictable. When you are always available, people begin to use you as an emotional emergency button, something they can press when they need attention, validation, or comfort. But when you're constantly on standby, you become so predictable that your presence no longer has value. You've become a tool for others to use, and you're left wondering why, despite all your efforts, you still feel unappreciated. Carl Jung spoke about the concept of the persona, the mask we wear to gain acceptance and love. This mask often pushes us to be overly available, to say yes when we should say no. We respond to messages even when we're exhausted. We justify our actions even when we're suffocating, all because we're afraid of losing others or being rejected. But in this process, we lose ourselves. We give so much to maintain an image that, in the end, we start to disappear from our own reality. This cycle is self-abandonment. Being always available is an unconscious way of seeking approval, of avoiding rejection, and of controlling how others perceive us. But the cost of this is high. It's your peace, your energy, your vitality. The more you give, the less you have. You give away your strength in hopes of being loved or valued, but what you're really doing is exhausting yourself in the process. And here's the cruelest part. When you stop being available, when you set a boundary, those same people who benefited from your constant presence will criticize you. They will accuse you of being distant, of changing, but the truth is not that you've changed, it's that you stop being useful to them. The moment you stop fulfilling their needs, Their perception of you shifts and they become uncomfortable. They don't want you to change. They want you to remain predictable and controllable. Think about this. Who truly deserves your time? Who deserves your attention, your presence, your listening ear? And even more importantly, who deserves your absence? Before we answer those questions, let's first explore why we react so much. Why do we give in so easily to other people's demands and emotions? What is behind that almost automatic desire to respond, justify, and please? The answer lies in what Carl Jung referred to as psychic energy. According to Jung, our minds are not just machines that react to external stimuli, they are complex systems of energy. Every thought, emotion, and action consumes a part of that energy. And here's the key question. Are you consciously choosing where your energy goes, or are you allowing others to decide for you? Every time you react impulsively, whether it's defending yourself against an unimportant criticism or engaging in a pointless argument, you're wasting your psychic energy. When you try to please people who don't value you, or when you answer messages immediately even though you're exhausted, you're dispersing your inner strength on things that don't nourish you. Jung made it clear that which you resist persists. The more you react, the more you bind yourself to these situations, and the more energy you lose. Emotional exhaustion doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been misdirecting your energy. When you're constantly reacting, you're essentially feeding into a cycle that drains you. People who live emotionally drained aren't weak. They're simply not directing their energy where it truly matters. And here's the real danger. When you're emotionally drained, you become vulnerable. Opportunistic and manipulative people can sense that. They notice that you're always trying to solve other people's problems or respond to their needs, and they take advantage of it. Jung said that a healthy psyche knows how to keep energy within the system. This means knowing when to say no without guilt, knowing when to remain silent without feeling cowardly, and knowing when to step back and observe instead of jumping into action. True power comes from choosing when and how to act, not from reacting to every stimulus around you. When you protect your energy, you break free from the emotional manipulation that others might try to impose on you. Your silence and your ability to say no without guilt become a form of sovereignty over your own life. And that is when you start to regain control. Think about how many times you've lost sleep over an unresolved conversation, or how many times you've spent hours ruminating over something someone said or did. That's your energy being drained for no reason. You are feeding dynamics that only exist because you keep reacting. And that's where your energy is escaping, through your automatic reactions, your need to please, and your failure to protect your boundaries. But the moment you stop reacting, the moment you step back and observe, things begin to change. You break the cycle. Jung understood that a healthy psyche knows how to preserve energy. When you stop reacting, you start to observe, and that's where true power lies. You begin to notice patterns that were previously invisible: emotional repetitions, manipulative cycles, and self-sabotaging behaviors. Silence, when used consciously, is not just the absence of noise. It's an act of deep inner observation and a powerful tool for self-mastery. When you withdraw from automatic reactions and give yourself the space to breathe, you start to gain clarity. Emotional triggers that once pulled you in now seem distant, almost irrelevant. You're no longer at the mercy of others' demands. Instead, you are fully present in your own life, observing without judgment, responding only when you choose to. This is not indifference or coldness. It is mastery over your emotional state, the ability to choose when and how to engage. The most powerful people in the world don't need to make a scene to be heard. They don't need to shout or argue to prove their worth. Their silence speaks volumes. It commands respect. It creates space for others to confront their own insecurities and shadows. When you remain silent instead of reacting, you rob others of their ability to control you through their manipulative games. Have you ever noticed how some people panic when you stop responding? When you don't explain yourself? When you simply disappear from their grasp? It's not because they miss you. It's because your silence takes away their narrative control. When you speak, you are still playing the game. But when you stop speaking, when you choose silence, you change the rules of the game entirely. You don't need to argue or explain. Your silence does all the work. But this type of silence is not passive. It is active, strategic, and purposeful. It is a tool for self-protection and empowerment. True silence doesn't come from fear or avoidance. It comes from a place of strength and awareness. It's not about ignoring the world, it's about reclaiming your energy and choosing your battles. Jung referred to this process as individuation, the path to becoming your true, authentic self. And one of the most crucial aspects of this journey is the ability to retreat when necessary, to step back and allow yourself the space to reconnect with your inner voice, free from external influences. When you withdraw, you're not just protecting yourself from emotional manipulation. You're also creating the conditions for deep inner transformation. This transformation begins with silence, the silence that allows you to listen to your own thoughts, your own feelings, without the noise of the world constantly interrupting. One of the most difficult truths to accept is that many of our emotional responses are not as conscious as we believe them to be. Carl Jung recognized that most of our emotional reactions are driven by unconscious patterns, and those who understand these patterns can manipulate us effortlessly. Opportunistic individuals don't need to yell or force situations. They simply press the emotional buttons we've left exposed, and we react without thinking. This is called projection, a psychological mechanism where people project onto others the things they refuse to confront within themselves. When we become overly available, we become blank slates for these projections. People see us not for who we truly are, but for the roles we agree to play. Think about it. That friend who only reaches out when they need something, the partner who always demands to be rescued, the person who praises you as long as you're useful to them. None of this is random. They're not seeing you. They're seeing an idealized version of you that they've created in their minds. You're not being loved for who you are, but for the role you play in their emotional drama. Why do we agree to these roles? Because we fear rejection. We fear being abandoned. We fear not being loved. And that fear keeps us available even when it's emotionally draining. But here's the catch. The more we respond to these projections, the more we feed into them, and the more we lose ourselves. The cycle continues until we've given so much of ourselves away that there's little left for us to give. This is where silence becomes powerful. When you stop reacting, when you stop playing the role others have assigned to you, everything changes. The projections crumble, the mask people have placed on you falls off, and they're left confronting their own shadow. This is uncomfortable for them, and it's why many people will become defensive or accusatory when you stop being available. They may criticize you, call you distant, or even accuse you of changing. But the truth is, you haven't changed. You've simply stopped reacting to their manipulations. And that is exactly what makes them uncomfortable. They're no longer able to control the narrative. They no longer have access to your energy. And for people who thrive on manipulating others, this is deeply unsettling. By choosing silence, you strip away the mask they've projected onto you. And in that moment, you disarm them. They have no control over you anymore because you've taken back your power. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain grounded and secure in yourself, regardless of what others project onto you. The process of withdrawing, of choosing silence over reaction, is not without its costs. It will distance you from people who only valued you for the role you played in their lives. It will make you seem cold, distant, and perhaps even arrogant to those who don't understand what you're doing. But these reactions are not about you. They're about the other person's inability to handle your absence. When you stop being emotionally available, when you choose not to explain yourself, you force others to confront something they've long been avoiding, their own emotional chaos. The discomfort they feel when you withdraw isn't because you've done something wrong. It's because they can no longer use you to manage their own issues. They have to deal with themselves now, and that's not something everyone is prepared for. This is the price of silence. It will cause friction. It will create misunderstandings. It will bring rejection, but it will also bring freedom. Freedom from people who have been feeding off your energy. Freedom from the constant pressure to perform and please. Freedom to finally be yourself without the weight of others' expectations. Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming the person you are truly meant to be, requires this kind of distancing. It's a sacred isolation, a time for inner retreat, a space to reconnect with your essence, to listen to your own voice without the world constantly interrupting. This is the kind of solitude that brings strength, clarity, and a sense of self that isn't defined by others' needs or projections. But let's be real, it's not easy. Silence can feel like a void, an emptiness that echoes in your chest. You might feel guilty for not responding, for not explaining yourself, for not being the person others want you to be. You'll probably face criticism from those who can't understand why you've stopped being available. But remember this discomfort is the price of reclaiming your energy, your peace, and your true self. And here's the hard truth. The more you mature, the more you'll become selective with your energy, with your time, with your attention. This is not about being cold or indifferent. It's about recognizing that not everyone deserves access to your most valuable resource, your inner peace. So ask yourself, how many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you engaged in conversations or relationships that drained you just to avoid conflict or rejection? The more you let go of these toxic dynamics, the more you will reclaim yourself. And in that process, you will find true respect, not from others, but from yourself. As you begin to master the art of silence, something incredible happens. You begin to realize that not everyone deserves access to your time, energy, or emotional state. Not everyone should be allowed to project their issues onto you, and not everyone should have the right to influence how you feel. When you become selective about who and what you engage with, you reclaim your power. This selectiveness doesn't come from a place of arrogance, but from a deep understanding of your own worth and limitations. You begin to see that your energy is finite, and every moment you spend reacting to others or trying to meet their expectations is a moment taken away from your own growth, peace, and well-being. This realization is empowering, but it also requires courage. Courage to say no. Courage to walk away from relationships that drain you. Courage to let go of the need for validation, for acceptance, and for approval. It's about choosing your peace over the need to be liked or understood. It's about choosing your own mental and emotional health over the chaos that others might bring into your life. And here's the paradox. The more selective you become with your energy, the more valuable your presence becomes. When you stop being readily available, when you stop giving yourself away to everyone who demands your attention, people start to respect you more. They begin to see the value in what you offer because they can no longer take it for granted. Think about it. When something is always available, it loses its value. It becomes disposable. But when something is rare, it's treasured. Your energy, your time, your presence should not be treated as something that is automatically given. It should be earned. The more you protect your energy and withhold it from those who don't deserve it, the more it becomes a force that others respect and cherish. This shift in mindset is transformative. It's a realization that not everyone needs to have access to you at all times. You start to put your own needs, your own peace, and your own well-being first. You realize that your worth is not measured by how much you give to others, but by how much you give to yourself. When you start respecting your own energy, others begin to do the same. As you begin to set boundaries and protect your energy, you may start noticing something unsettling. The people who once relied on your constant availability will push back. This is a natural part of the process, but it's also a crucial step in reclaiming your power. When you stop responding to every demand, when you stop being the person who is always there for others, those who have been feeding off your energy will react. They may try to provoke you, guilt trip you, or make you feel like you're in the wrong. But remember, this is not a reflection of your actions. It's a sign that you've broken the cycle of emotional manipulation they've been using. The more you stop giving your energy away, the more these people will feel unsettled. They might accuse you of changing, of becoming distant, or of being selfish. But these accusations aren't about you. They're about their inability to control you anymore. You are no longer playing by their rules, and that's what makes them uncomfortable. When you choose silence, when you choose to withdraw from the emotional games, you disrupt the dynamic. The people who once relied on your responses, your availability, and your attention now have to face their own emotions without your constant reassurance. This can be incredibly disorienting for them, and it's why many will lash out. But this is the moment of liberation. The moment you stop engaging in their drama, you reclaim your peace. And the more you do this, the more you start to rebuild your life on your terms. No longer are you defined by other people's needs or emotional demands. Instead, you are becoming the person who defines their own reality. Jung's concept of individuation is about becoming who you truly are, free from external influences and projections. By learning to guard your energy, you break free from the manipulative patterns that have held you captive. You stop being a puppet in the emotional games of others. And this shift, though uncomfortable at first, brings a sense of inner peace and clarity that is unparalleled. The discomfort of withdrawal, the resistance from others, and the loneliness that may come with it are all part of the process of self-liberation. This discomfort is the price of reclaiming your power. It's the price of becoming emotionally sovereign and learning to value yourself more than the fleeting approval of others. As you continue to step back from the emotional chaos around you, a significant transformation begins to take place. What starts as discomfort, this strange silence, this feeling of distance, soon becomes something else entirely. It evolves into a space for healing, clarity, and ultimately rebirth. When you withdraw emotionally, you may initially feel as though you are losing something. Perhaps you feel isolated, misunderstood, or even abandoned. But in reality, this is not loss. It is the beginning of a new kind of connection with yourself. As Carl Jung stated, the process of individuation, or becoming who you truly are, requires moments of isolation. This isolation is not to be feared. It's necessary for inner growth. In the silence that follows, you start to reconnect with your true essence. You begin to hear your own thoughts, feel your own emotions, and understand your desires without the interference of others. It's in this silence that you start to rediscover what truly matters to you. You are no longer reacting to the world around you. Instead, you are beginning to shape your own reality, free from external influence. This rebirth is often accompanied by a profound sense of peace. You may find that in the absence of constant emotional noise, you are more grounded, more centered, and more connected to your authentic self. The chaos of trying to please others, of being controlled by their expectations, fades away, leaving room for clarity. But of course, this process is not easy. It takes courage to step away from relationships, patterns, and environments that have defined you for so long. It takes strength to endure the criticism, the rejection, and the discomfort that come with the journey of emotional sovereignty. But as you continue to guard your energy and stay true to yourself, you begin to experience a sense of freedom that is unmatched. In this space of freedom, you begin to understand something crucial. Your worth is not determined by how much you give to others, but by how much you can give to yourself. This transformation isn't about being selfish. It's about being whole. It's about rediscovering your own voice and reclaiming your power. The people who once benefited from your availability may now distance themselves, but that's not a loss. It's a necessary part of this transformation. As you let go of those who only valued you for the role you played, you make room for people who will appreciate you for who you truly are. This is not a loss. It is a purification, a shedding of the old to make way for the new. As you continue this process of withdrawal and emotional selectivity, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience the strength of your silence in a way you've never known before. What was once perceived as weakness, being absent, withdrawn, or distant, becomes your greatest source of power. The strength of silence lies not in avoiding the world, but in choosing when to engage and when to remain detached. It is in the moments of silence that you can reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and reinforce your boundaries. Silence is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of self-mastery. It is a tool that allows you to hold your ground without needing to explain, justify, or react. Think about the moments when you've reacted impulsively, when you've given in to the pressure to respond, to defend, to please. In those moments, your energy is scattered and you are giving away pieces of yourself. But when you choose silence, when you choose not to engage in battles that are not worth your time, you become whole. You preserve your energy for what truly matters. Jung's concept of individuation is central to this idea of silence. The more you withdraw from external distractions and expectations, the closer you come to understanding your true self. In this process, silence becomes a powerful tool of transformation. It gives you the space to reflect, to reconnect with your inner desires, and to align with your authentic purpose. The silence that you now embrace is not about shutting yourself off from the world. It's about recognizing that your worth is not dependent on the noise and chaos around you. The world will continue to demand your attention, your energy, and your reactions. But now you have the power to choose. You can choose to listen to yourself instead of being swayed by the demands of others. You can choose to protect your energy, to preserve your peace, and to be intentional with how you engage with the world. The true power of silence is that it disarms those who seek to control you. When you stop reacting, stop explaining yourself, and stop being available at all times, the people who once relied on your emotional availability will be forced to confront themselves. This is uncomfortable for them, but it is liberating for you. Now that you've embraced the strength of your silence, let's delve deeper into why emotional availability can be such a dangerous trap. It's easy to believe that being there for everyone, always available to listen, always ready to help, is a sign of selflessness or virtue. But in reality, it's a path to emotional exhaustion, manipulation, and self-neglect. Being constantly available to others means you are prioritizing their needs over your own. This makes you a tool for their convenience, their emotional relief, their validation. When you make yourself too accessible, you stop being a person of value and become an emotional outlet for others. You are no longer seen as an individual with your own needs, but as someone to be used when needed. But the most dangerous part of this is the subtle way it erodes your sense of self. Over time, you begin to lose sight of your own desires and needs. You become so caught up in reacting to the needs of others that you forget to take care of your own. This is not a healthy relationship dynamic, whether it's with friends, family, or romantic partners. In the long run, this behavior is a form of self-abandonment. As you stop being emotionally available, you create space for self-care, reflection, and growth. You start to learn what truly matters to you, what nourishes your soul, and what drains your energy. You begin to understand that it's not your job to fix everyone or to maintain peace at all costs. Your true job is to preserve your own energy, to protect your own peace, and to become whole again. This is where the path to sovereignty begins. Sovereignty is not about controlling others or forcing them to see things your way. It's about controlling yourself, your reactions, your energy, and your peace. It's about taking responsibility for your own well-being and no longer allowing external forces to dictate your emotional state. When you choose sovereignty, you choose to live authentically. You choose to listen to your own voice, to prioritize your own needs, and to stop sacrificing yourself for the approval of others. This journey of emotional sovereignty requires practice, but it's a journey that will ultimately lead to inner peace, self-respect, and a deeper connection to your true self. As you stand on the edge of this transformation, you may still feel a sense of unease. The journey to emotional sovereignty and self-mastery is not easy, and it can be accompanied by discomfort, loneliness, and even rejection. But it is in this very discomfort that your true freedom lies. True freedom comes when you stop being available to everyone, when you stop reacting to every emotional trigger, and when you stop believing that your worth is tied to your constant presence in others' lives. The moment you let go of the need to please, to constantly prove your value, to show up for others at the expense of your own well-being, something profound happens. You become whole. You become the creator of your own reality, not a passive participant in the emotional dramas of others. The process of becoming emotionally unavailable is not about cutting people off or rejecting the world. It's about recognizing your own worth and no longer allowing yourself to be drained by those who take but never give. It's about setting boundaries that protect your peace, about choosing who gets access to your energy, and about stepping into your power. Carl Jung spoke about the necessity of isolation in the process of individuation. He understood that to truly know oneself, one must sometimes retreat from the noise and chaos of the world. This isolation is not a rejection of the world, but rather a return to oneself. It is a space where you reconnect with your own desires, your own truth, and your own inner strength. And this process of isolation, of withdrawal, can lead to something beautiful, a rebirth. You begin to shed the layers of expectations, projections, and emotional baggage that others have placed upon you. You start to hear your own voice again, the voice that has been drowned out by the demands of the world. You reconnect with your essence, with the person you were always meant to be, before the world told you who you should be. At first, the silence might feel unnerving. It might bring up feelings of loneliness, fear, or uncertainty, but gradually this silence becomes your sanctuary. It becomes a place where you can rebuild, recharge, and renew. In this space, you will rediscover your worth, not based on how available you are to others, but on how connected you are to yourself. The people who once valued you for the role you played will begin to fade away, but in their place, you will find the people who truly see you. They will appreciate you for who you are, not for what you provide. And even more importantly, you will learn to appreciate yourself. This is the ultimate freedom, to be loved and respected for your true self, without having to sacrifice your peace or your authenticity. The journey is challenging, but it is worth it. You are no longer available to those who drain you, to those who manipulate you, or to those who want to control your energy. You are now the master of your own life, the keeper of your own peace, and the creator of your own reality. And from this place, you can step into the world as a fully realized, empowered, and sovereign being.